What happens when the husband I thought would always forgive me signs divorce papers while I'm still pretending nothing happened? Why did one night, one mistake I convinced myself was just comfort, become the reason he stood up in public and ended our marriage with legal documents in his hand? How do you explain a story when the ending arrives before you're ready to tell the truth? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Aeliana Crestwood, and if you asked me a year ago whether one mistake could destroy a whole marriage, I would have laughed. I used to think people who said that were dramatic, the kind who can't handle pressure or real adult problems. But now, I'm standing in the middle of my own life, watching everything fall apart, because of one night I keep telling myself didn't mean anything. Everyone says the truth hurts, but they never tell you how fast it can flip the story against you. Rowan, my husband, was in the hospital that night. It wasn't life or death, just an injury from work. Still, I wasn't there. Not really. I told myself he'd understand, that he always understood. I convinced myself I deserved a break, deserved attention, deserved something more than the tired man waiting for me at home. I thought he'd brush off what happened like he brushed off everything else. Instead, he went quiet. And that quiet turned into distance. And that distance turned into something I never expected. A calm, cold ending I wasn't ready for. Now I keep asking myself one thing. When did a moment I thought I controlled become the moment that controlled everything? I woke up that morning already annoyed, even though nothing had happened yet. The apartment felt too quiet, too still, like Rowan's calm energy had somehow filled every room before he even left for work. He always did that. He'd wake early, make coffee, pack Mira's lunch, and move through the morning like someone who had all the time in the world. I used to think it was sweet, the way he tried to make life easier for us. Lately, though, it just made me feel trapped, like he was performing for some invisible audience, and I was supposed to clap. When I walked into the kitchen, I saw it again, his mug cleaned and drying on the counter, mine untouched from last night. He always cleaned his, never mine, as if that tiny act proved something. I told myself it was a silent message, that he wanted me to feel like the one who didn't keep up. He said good morning, and I replied with a quiet, pretending to be tired. He asked if I slept well. I told him I would have slept better if he hadn't tossed so much, even though I barely felt him move at all. He apologized, of course. He always apologized. I didn't acknowledge it. At breakfast, Mira asked if I could braid her hair for school. I told her to ask her dad because I was running late. I wasn't. I just didn't want to sit there pretending everything was normal. Rowan braided her hair while she hummed to herself, and I said nothing, except that he should make the braids tighter next time. He nodded like I had just given important instructions. It annoyed me more than if he'd argued. When I dropped Mira off, Rowan walked her to the door. I stayed in the car, scrolling through my messages, even though no one had texted. One of the teachers waved at me, but I pretended not to see. It was easier than getting out and acting like the cheerful parent I didn't feel like being. By the time I got to work, I'd convinced myself Rowan was the problem again. He didn't laugh enough, didn't flirt enough, didn't make me feel wanted the way he used to. So, when I walked into the office and saw Marcus standing by the coffee machine, smiling like he'd been waiting for me, I felt something warm, something that made me stand a little taller. He asked if my morning was tough. I told him Rowan woke up in one of his moods, even though that wasn't true. He wasn't in a mood at all. He was normal. Too normal. Marcus laughed in that easy way he always did, like he understood me better than anyone else. Jana, who sat near my desk, asked why Rowan never joined us for office dinners. I said he preferred staying home because he didn't like people. They both nodded, acting like this explained everything, and I let them believe it. It felt good to have support, even if it was based on things I stretched or twisted. Around lunch, my phone buzzed. Rowan sent a photo of Mira holding a drawing she made at school. He wrote, "She wanted to show you." I looked at the picture for 1 second before locking my phone again. Marcus asked who it was, and I said, "No one important." The words came out faster than I meant them to, but I didn't take them back. He shouldn't have been texting me during work anyway. He knew I hated disruptions. After lunch, I walked past the meeting rooms and saw a group of younger teachers talking about weekend plans. One of them asked why I always teased Rowan so much when we all went out last month. I pretended not to remember. She said it looked like he was embarrassed, like maybe I pushed too far. I laughed it off and told her Rowan didn't mind. Then I added, "If anything, he likes when I lighten him up." She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Back at my desk, Jana showed me a meme about dramatic husbands. I sent it to my sister Tova, who replied almost instantly, telling me Rowan needed to man up a little. I rolled my eyes in that exaggerated way I knew made people laugh. I said, Rowan used to be more exciting, more expressive, and I didn't know what happened to him. The truth was he still cared, the same way he always had. I just didn't feel it the same. When I got home that evening, Rowan was already making dinner. He asked how my day was. I told him Marcus handled a big project better than expected, just to see if he reacted. He only said, "That's good. No jealousy, no spark, just calm acceptance." I hated that answer. I told him he should try being more supportive like Marcus. He said he thought he was supportive. I sighed, long and loud, as if he'd failed a test. During dinner, Mira talked about her drawing again. I said I would look at it later. Rowan gave me this tiny, tired smile, the kind people use when they're trying not to argue. I pushed my plate away, even though I wasn't done eating. I said the meal was fine, but a little bland. Rowan nodded quietly, then cleaned the dishes, while I scrolled through my phone on the couch. When bedtime came, he asked if I wanted to watch something together. I told him I was too busy catching up on messages, though I wasn't. After he went to the bedroom, I stayed on the couch, letting my annoyance grow. It was easier that way, easier to believe I had reasons, that I wasn't the one creating problems where there weren't any. Before I fell asleep, I heard him walking around the guest room for a moment. I didn't check why. I didn't ask. I just told myself he was being distant again. I didn't see the faint glow from his phone through the crack in the door. I didn't hear the quiet rustle of papers being sorted. I didn't notice anything at all. I only knew I felt justified. And at that point, feeling justified mattered more to me than being right. The next week started with a small mistake that I kept telling myself didn't matter. I walked into the office feeling tired, irritated, and already in the mood to complain about something. I didn't even take off my jacket before Jana whispered that Marcus had been asking if I was coming in early. The way she said it made me feel important, like someone was finally noticing me the way I wanted to be noticed. I acted casual, though. I told her he probably needed an update on the project, even though the project wasn't due for another 2 days. When I reached my desk, Marcus appeared with 2 coffees. He said he guessed my order. He was right. That detail made me smile more than I expected. He asked how my morning was, and I told him Rowan barely said 2 words to me. That wasn't true. Rowan had asked about my meeting, but I left that out. I said Rowan didn't understand how stressful my life had been. Marcus nodded like he knew exactly what I meant, and I let myself enjoy that feeling. Around mid-morning, I posted a harmless joke about carrying my whole household on my back, along with a selfie at my desk. I didn't tag Rowan, but people who knew us commented things like, "Girl, you deserve a break." It made me feel seen. I saw Rowan viewed the story, but he didn't reply. I got annoyed, even though I didn't know what reply I wanted from him. At lunch, a group of us went to the cafe across the street. Jana brought up that Rowan looked upset in the hospital photo I posted days earlier. She said it lightly, like gossip. I laughed too loudly and told her he's dramatic when he's sick or hurt. The others laughed, and even though a small part of me knew I shouldn't be saying these things, I kept going. I told a story about how he once limped around for a week because he twisted his ankle on a curb. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. He said some men didn't know how to handle discomfort. I nodded, feeling proud that people seemed to agree with me. Returning to the office, I saw a message from Rowan on my phone. It was simple, asking if I'd be home for dinner. I didn't answer. It wasn't that I didn't know what to say. I just didn't feel like giving him more of my time in the middle of a workday. Marcus walked past my desk again, asking if I needed help with something. I said I could manage, but my voice softened in a way I wasn't proud of. Mid-afternoon, I noticed my sister had tagged me in a post about wives who keep everything together, even when husbands fall apart. I shared it without thinking. Tova replied, saying Rowan should try harder to keep up with me. I didn't disagree. I just let the comments pile up, forming a little stack of validation that made me forget Rowan's steady, quiet ways. Later, Marcus asked if I wanted to stay a bit after work to review details for the presentation. The way he asked made it sound like a normal request, but there was a softness in his tone. I told him I could stay for a bit. When I texted Rowan that I'd be late, he responded instantly with, "Okay, be safe." I stared at the message longer than I should have, annoyed again by how calm he always was. The office emptied out slowly. The lights dimmed to that evening glow that made everything feel closer. Marcus and I worked side by side for a while, but after 20 minutes he leaned back and said, maybe I needed a break. I said maybe I did. He suggested grabbing a drink downstairs at the hotel bar. I hesitated, only for show. Inside, I liked the idea of sitting somewhere with soft lighting, where someone listened to me without judgment. The bar was lively but not loud. He ordered for both of us without asking, and I let him. He asked how things really were at home. I told him Rowan wasn't trying hard enough. I said he didn't look at me like he used to. I even said I felt invisible. Marcus said I deserved attention and warmth. I knew he was giving me exactly what I wanted to hear, but I didn't stop him. I leaned into it. I told him I was drowning in responsibilities. He said he understood that feeling, that sometimes people get so used to you carrying everything that they stop noticing how heavy it is. We talked for over an hour. Every time my phone buzzed, I flipped it face down. At one point, Marcus put his hand on my arm to make a point about something, and I didn't move away. I noticed another coworker walk into the bar. She raised her eyebrows but didn't say anything. She saw us. I wondered how the story would spin by morning, but I didn't care. Part of me liked imagining Rowan hearing some exaggerated version of this after pretending he wasn't bothered by anything. On the way out, I checked my phone. 2 missed calls from Rowan, one from the school, saying Mira left her lunchbox behind. Rowan had already handled it. He wrote, "Everything's fine, no rush getting home." I should have felt grateful. Instead, a cold irritation spread through me. How could he be so calm? Why wasn't he asking where I was? Why wasn't he jealous? By the time I got home, the apartment was dark, except for the kitchen light. Dinner sat covered on the counter. Rowan asked if work went late. I said yes before he could finish the question. He said Mira wanted to show me her new drawing, but fell asleep waiting. I told him I was tired. He didn't argue. He said he hoped tomorrow would be easier for me. That tone, gentle, steady, felt like an insult. I went to bed early, leaving him in the living room. When he finally came in, I pretended to be asleep. I didn't want him asking anything else, even though he rarely did. I heard him open the closet and adjust something. A soft clink. Paper, maybe. Or a drawer. I didn't look. Before drifting off, I thought about Marcus's hand on my arm, the warmth of it, the attention. I told myself nothing was happening, nothing real, nothing wrong. I convinced myself it was fine because I needed it, because Rowan didn't notice me the way he used to. And in that moment, I didn't feel guilty at all. I just felt sure I was right. The night everything tipped started on a Thursday, a day that should have been normal. I woke up already impatient with the world, annoyed at Rowan for breathing too quietly beside me, annoyed at the sunlight, annoyed at myself for no reason. I got ready without saying much, and when Rowan asked if I wanted him to pack Mira's snack, or if I wanted to do it, I said I didn't care. He did it, of course, and I rolled my eyes like he'd done something wrong. At work, Jana asked if I was going to the small after-hours gathering the team planned for finishing the presentation draft. I hadn't planned on it, but when I saw Marcus glance at me from across the room, I suddenly said yes. I even acted like it was a big sacrifice. Jana laughed and told me I needed fun. I agreed too quickly. The day dragged until late afternoon. Rowan sent a message asking if I could pick up Mira because his meeting ran long. I told him I couldn't because we had mandatory teamwork, which wasn't true. He replied with, "Okay, I'll figure it out." The calmness of that message irritated me more than it should have. I told myself he could at least act disappointed, or annoyed, or something that proved I mattered. By 6 p.m., the office was quieter. People had begun drifting toward the event space downstairs, but Marcus stayed back to finish a few things. I lingered at my desk until he asked if I wanted to go down together. His voice was soft, almost concerned in that practiced way he had. I told him sure, but I needed a minute, pretending to be overwhelmed by work. He waited by the door anyway. The event wasn't much, just a few drinks, some music, co-workers talking about deadlines like they were gossip. I tried to blend in, but my eyes kept drifting toward Marcus. When the conversation turned dull, he leaned in and joked about how he wished he could escape early. I said I'd leave too, but it would look obvious. He smiled and said, obvious wasn't always bad. I felt that spark, the kind that made my stomach tighten in a way I didn't want to admit. I told myself it was harmless, just energy, just interest, just attention. Rowan didn't give any more. Even though Rowan had never stopped caring, I just didn't recognize it. After half an hour, people left in waves. Jana winked at me on her way out, telling me not to be boring. Marcus asked if I wanted one more drink before heading home. I didn't need one. I shouldn't have needed one. But the idea of going home to Rowan, who would probably ask how work was, and then say something neutral like, "I'm glad you managed," felt suffocating. So I nodded. We walked to the hotel bar next door. The lights were warm, the noise low, the kind of place where it felt easy to pretend life was simpler. He ordered a light drink for both of us. I told him Rowan was in one of his distant moods again. Marcus asked if Rowan showed appreciation for all I handled at home. I said not enough. I didn't mention that Rowan did almost everything quietly, without expecting recognition. Marcus asked how I really felt about my marriage. The question felt too intimate, but I answered anyway. I said Rowan didn't see me the way he used to, that I felt like a shadow in my own house, that I needed someone to remind me I was still wanted. Marcus listened like every word mattered, and the more he listened, the more I leaned into the story I wanted to believe. When my phone buzzed again, Rowan's name on the screen, I turned it face down. Marcus noticed but didn't comment. Instead, he told me sometimes people grow apart without noticing. I said, maybe I had outgrown the quiet life Rowan offered. Marcus didn't say anything to that, just looked at me in a way that made everything feel charged. Then came the moment I still replay, even though I wish I didn't. Marcus asked if I wanted to continue talking somewhere quieter. I hesitated, or tried to convince myself I hesitated. In truth, the decision had already been made long before. Not out loud, not consciously, but in every small choice I'd made in the hours leading up to it. I nodded, telling myself it was just a walk, just a conversation, nothing serious. We took the elevator up to the quiet floors. Not to a room at first, but to a lounge area that overlooked the city. We sat close, too close. He said I deserved someone who saw me, I said I wasn't sure what I deserved anymore. He touched my hand. I didn't move away, and the space between us dissolved the way thin ice melts under pressure. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't wild. It was slow, quiet, intentional. A decision disguised as a mistake. I kept telling myself it wasn't physical. Not really. Not in a way that counted. I told myself I just needed comfort. I told myself the night didn't define me. These were lies, but lies feel safer when you're already halfway inside them. When it was late enough that pretending I was just delayed at work wouldn't make sense, I finally checked my phone. Rowan had called twice. Mira had sent a voice message asking if I could help her find her missing purple pencil. Rowan texted that she found it, and he tucked her in. My chest tightened a little, but not enough to stop me, not enough to make me undo anything. I told Marcus I should head home. He walked me to the elevator with a soft smile that made the entire evening feel unreal. The ride home felt longer than usual. I rehearsed what I would say if Rowan asked where I'd been. Traffic, extra work, helping a coworker. All half-truths I could shape into something believable. When I walked through the door, the apartment was dim. Rowan was sitting on the couch, awake but quiet. He asked if everything was okay. I said yes, just a long day. He asked why I didn't answer the phone. I said I didn't hear it. He didn't push. He just nodded. The same tired nod he always gave me when he didn't want to start a fight. I went to change, and when I passed by the guest room, the door was half closed. I saw a faint light inside. His phone screen, or maybe a small lamp. Papers were arranged in neat stacks on the desk. A folder labeled Utilities sat on top, another labeled Bank. I didn't know when he started sorting things like that. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself he was probably just organizing. I told myself nothing would come from tonight, but when I finally lay in bed, I felt a heaviness I couldn't name. Not guilt, not yet. More like a shift in the air, something slipping out of place without a sound. Rowan came to bed later, quiet as usual. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to sleep. I thought if I stayed still, the night would freeze and never change anything. But things had already changed. And deep down, even then, I knew it. The morning after that night, I woke up feeling strangely light, like I had stepped out of my own skin and wasn't sure how to fit back into it. Rowan was already up. I heard him moving in the kitchen with that quiet rhythm he always had. For a second, I wondered if he knew anything, if I had left some clue on my face or in my voice. But when I walked in, he only said good morning and asked if I wanted coffee. He didn't look angry. He didn't look sad. He just looked steady. That steadiness irritated me more than anything else. I told him I didn't have time for coffee and grabbed a granola bar instead. Mira came out of her room rubbing her eyes and asked if I would walk her to the car. I said I needed to fix my hair first. Rowan walked her out, and I followed a minute later. Mira mentioned she had drawn another picture and wanted to show me after school. I nodded without really listening. On the drive, Rowan asked if I was free for lunch that Saturday because his mother wanted us to come to a small family gathering. I sighed and said I'd try, but I wasn't promising anything. He just said, "All right," as if that was the end. No frustration, no argument, just acceptance. I stared out the window and felt annoyed at him for not pushing harder. That Saturday came faster than I expected. We went to a family restaurant, one Rowan's family liked because it had long tables and quiet corners where everyone could talk easily. I arrived irritated because my sister had texted me all morning about Marcus, teasing me, asking if he had said anything sweet. I didn't reply, but seeing her messages made me feel strangely important again. When we got to the table, Rowan's mother smiled politely. She was always gentle, but I sensed something different in her eyes, something careful. Rowan pulled out Mira's chair, and she giggled when he made a silly face. I didn't know why, but that bothered me too. During the meal, Rowan's cousin asked how he was doing after his injury at school. I laughed before Rowan could speak, telling everyone he exaggerated the pain and acted like he almost died over a sprain. A few people chuckled politely, but the room felt off. Rowan didn't say anything. He just looked down at his plate. That quietness made me feel defensive, so I kept going, saying he could be dramatic sometimes, and that I had to handle everything when he couldn't. Rowan's mother gently asked if I was being fair. I said I was only joking, and that everyone should relax. The table fell quiet in that heavy way that made every clink of silverware sound louder. Mira tugged on my sleeve and whispered, asking why Dad looked sad. I told her he wasn't sad, he was just tired. She didn't look convinced. When we left the restaurant, I could feel Rowan's mother watching me, like she wanted to say something but knew better. In the car, Rowan drove without music, and I tapped my nails on the window. I asked him why he had acted so stiff at lunch. He said he didn't think the jokes were necessary. I told him he needed to lighten up. He didn't argue. He only nodded once, and that small nod made my stomach twist. The next week, things grew heavier in ways I couldn't explain. At the school pickup line, I got there late, and Rowan's mother was already standing with Mira outside the car. She smiled stiffly and said she happened to be nearby. I knew she was lying. Mira climbed into the back seat and didn't say much. When I asked her why she was so quiet, she said she didn't like when I yelled on the phone. I said I wasn't yelling, I was just talking firmly. She looked out the window without replying. At home, Rowan was folding laundry. He didn't ask how my day was. He didn't mention the pickup confusion. He just folded each shirt neatly and set it in a pile. I accused him of ignoring me. He said he wasn't ignoring me. He was giving me space. I said I didn't ask for space. He said nothing. Just that same steady expression that made me feel like I was losing some invisible battle. That night, after dinner, I fell into old habits, scrolling through messages and looking for something to distract me. Tova kept pushing me to talk more about Marcus. She said maybe I needed to think about what I really wanted in life. I told her she was being dramatic. She sent a laughing emoji and said I was the dramatic one. Later, when I went looking for my charger in the guest room, I noticed something strange. The desk was organized again. A new folder labeled Household was neatly stacked on top of a pile. I picked it up, but it wouldn't open. The drawer below it was locked. I heard Rowan's footsteps in the hallway, so I set everything down quickly. He peeked into the room and asked if I needed something. I said I was looking for my charger. He pointed to it on the nightstand and then walked away. No questions, no suspicion. Just that calm tone that made everything feel uncertain. The next day at my sister's place, I tried to vent. I told her Rowan had been distant, and she asked if I had told him anything meaningful lately. I said I didn't need to tell him anything. He should know how to treat me. She nodded like she agreed, but even she hesitated before responding. She said maybe I should try being nice for a day just to see what happened. I rolled my eyes. She laughed nervously. At work, rumors floated around. A coworker asked if everything was okay at home. I snapped at her for prying. She backed off. I felt embarrassed afterward, but I told myself she deserved it. Still, something felt different in the air. People looked at me longer than usual, whispered more softly when I walked by. I didn't know if it was because of Marcus or because of my mood, but I didn't like it either way. That evening, Rowan made dinner again. I didn't help. I sat at the counter scrolling through my phone while he chopped vegetables. He asked if I wanted rice or potatoes. I shrugged. He said he'd just choose then. I told him he didn't need to act so calm all the time, that it made me feel like I was talking to a wall. He said he wasn't trying to be calm. He was trying to keep things steady for Mira. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Instead, I turned away and pretended to check a message that wasn't actually there. Before bed, I heard Rowan moving things in the guest room again. I paused by the door, listening. Papers shifting. The faint click of something closing. My heartbeat sped up for reasons I couldn't name. When I stepped inside, he was turning off the lamp. I asked what he was doing. He said he was organizing old documents so we wouldn't lose important things. I almost laughed. Rowan had never cared about organizing documents before, but instead of laughing, I just stood there watching him. He walked past me, quiet as always, leaving the faint smell of paper and detergent in the air. For the first time in a long while, something inside me felt uneasy. Not guilty, not regretful. Just uneasy, like the ground beneath my feet had shifted a little, and I didn't know when it started. Monday felt heavier than usual, like the air in the apartment had thickened overnight. I woke to the sound of Rowan moving in the kitchen again, that same careful, measured rhythm he had started using more often. When I walked in, he didn't look surprised to see me. He just asked if I wanted toast. I told him I wasn't hungry, even though I was starving. He nodded and made Mira's breakfast without saying anything else. Mira asked if I would take her to school. I said I had to leave early for work. Rowan didn't comment. He just tied her shoes and helped her get her backpack on. I watched them for a moment, feeling annoyed by how quiet everything was. I told myself he was acting strange on purpose, like he was trying to make me feel guilty for something I didn't even think was wrong. On the drive to work, I checked my phone repeatedly, even though no one had messaged me. Part of me wanted Marcus to say something, anything, just to prove the connection hadn't been in my head. But there was nothing except a work reminder and a few unread group chat messages. Tova had sent something about husbands needing to step up. I didn't reply. When I got to the office, Jana gave me a strange look. Not judgmental, but curious. She asked if I was okay. I snapped that I was fine. She said I seemed tense. I told her I had a lot on my mind. She moved on, but I saw her whispering to another coworker later, and I hated the idea of them guessing things about me. Around mid-morning, Marcus finally walked in. His smile was smaller than usual. He said good morning like nothing had changed, but something felt different. When we had a few minutes alone, I asked if everything was all right. He said he was just busy. I asked if he wanted to grab lunch. He hesitated before saying he already had plans. Plans? With who? I didn't ask, but irritation sat heavy in my chest. At lunch, I ate alone at my desk. I scrolled through photos on my phone, stopping on a picture of Rowan and Mira at the park from months ago. They were laughing, both of them smiling at something behind the camera. I remembered taking that picture, feeling proud of my little family. I didn't know why, but the memory annoyed me now. Maybe because things didn't feel like that anymore. Or maybe because I didn't feel like that anymore. After lunch, I overheard two coworkers talking near the printer. They stopped when they saw me. One of them asked if I was coming to the weekend office meetup. I said I might. She nodded awkwardly. I could feel her eyes following me as I walked away. Something had shifted in the office, and I couldn't tell if it was because of Marcus or because of me. When I got home that evening, Rowan was already there. He was sitting on the couch with his laptop open, a spreadsheet glowing on the screen. I asked what he was doing. He said he was sorting some information. I asked what kind of information. He said, just things I want to have organized. I walked closer and saw columns with dates and short notes. I couldn't read much, but it made me uneasy. I asked why he was tracking things all of a sudden. He said it helped him think clearly. I told him it was weird. He said it helped. That was all. Then he closed the laptop gently, like he didn't want to argue. During dinner, I tried to talk about work, but he didn't respond much. He nodded or said small things like, "That's good," or "I see." I felt like I was talking to a wall again. I said he could at least act like he cared. He said he did care, but he didn't know what I wanted him to say. That irritated me even more. I said he should know me well enough by now. He said he was trying. After dinner, Mira asked if we could watch a movie together. Rowan said yes immediately. I said I had to catch up on emails. She looked disappointed, but she didn't argue. Rowan set up the movie while I sat in the bedroom pretending to work. Every laugh from the living room made me feel more alone, even though I chose to be. Later that night, I heard Rowan moving around in the guest room again. Not loudly, just the soft sounds of paper and drawers. I walked in without knocking. He looked up, calm as ever. I asked what he was doing. He said he was getting things in order. I asked what things. He said, everything. I tried to laugh, but the sound came out thin. I told him he was acting strange. He said he didn't think he was. I said he was being distant. He said he needed time to think. I rolled my eyes and said he always needed time. He didn't rise to it. He didn't get upset. He didn't defend himself. He just said, "I'm trying to handle this properly." Those words sat in the air like a bruise. Properly. I didn't know what he meant, but the tone made it clear he wasn't talking about fixing things between us. The rest of the night felt tense in a way I couldn't explain. When I finally went to bed, he stayed in the guest room. The space beside me felt wide and cold. I tried to sleep, but my mind kept replaying the calm way he had spoken. Not angry, not desperate, just certain. The next morning, things felt even stranger. Rowan had already left when I woke up, but his mug was on the counter, washed and drying as usual. A new calendar reminder was on the fridge screen. Follow-up, 9:45. I stared at it, feeling a small pulse of worry, though I tried to tell myself it wasn't important. At work, Marcus barely talked to me. He kept things focused on tasks, nothing more. When I asked if everything was okay between us, he said we shouldn't complicate things. I wanted to argue, but I didn't know what to say. The attention I had expected, the warmth I had leaned on, felt thinner now, like it had never been meant to last. On the drive home, I thought about Rowan again, about his steady voice, his careful movements, the locked drawer, the organized folders, the spreadsheet, the calendar reminders, all of it forming a silent pattern I didn't want to look at too closely. When I pulled into the parking lot of the supermarket, I saw Rowan's car already parked. He was putting groceries into the trunk. I walked over, expecting him to smile or at least say hi. Instead, he nodded politely, like I was a neighbor instead of his wife. I asked if he needed help. He said he had it handled. I laughed lightly and said he didn't need to be so dramatic. He looked at me for a long moment and said, very calmly, "I'm not being dramatic. I'm handling things properly." The way he said it made my chest tighten. I didn't know what he meant. I didn't know why it sounded final. He closed the trunk gently and said he'd meet me at home. He didn't wait for me. He just got into the car and drove off. And for the first time, I felt a flicker of fear, small but sharp, sitting right under my ribs. The morning of the reveal started out strangely normal, which almost made it worse. I woke expecting some clue, some sign that Rowan was still moving in that strange, quiet way he'd adopted, but the apartment looked the same as always. His mug was washed and drying. Mira's shoes were lined up by the door. My phone buzzed with a work notification, nothing more. For a moment I let myself believe things had stabilized, that the heaviness of the last week had finally broken. But when I stepped into the hallway, I noticed the faint smell of paper. Not strong, not obvious, just enough to remind me of the guest room and the careful stacks Rowan had been building in secret. I shook it off and told myself he was simply organizing. Men got obsessive about chores sometimes. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. On the drive to work, Mira hummed in the back seat while swinging her legs. Rowan drove quietly, both hands on the wheel. At a red light, Mira asked if we were all going to the park that weekend. I answered too quickly, saying I wasn't sure. Rowan said nothing. She asked again, gentler this time. Rowan only said, "We'll see." His voice wasn't cold. It was something else, like he was talking from a distance I couldn't cross. He dropped us off in front of my office building. As I unbuckled, he looked at me for a moment longer than usual. Not accusing, not angry, just steady. He said, "You should go inside. You're running late." I wasn't late, but I nodded anyway. When I got out, Mira waved. Rowan glanced up once, then pulled away from the curb. Inside the lobby, everything felt sharper. The lights too bright, the marble floor too loud under my heels. I told myself I was imagining it, that the tension from the past few days had just followed me in. I went to the elevator and checked my phone. There was a new shared calendar alert. Delivery, 10:15. No details, no explanation, just that. I frowned, annoyed. Rowan knew I hated vague reminders. I told myself he must have meant a package. Something for Mira. Something boring. Work dragged. Gianna seemed nervous around me. She asked how I was holding up, but her voice sounded cautious, not friendly. Marcus avoided me completely, speaking only when absolutely necessary. When he passed my desk, he didn't even give the small smile he once used so freely. Something had shifted, and I didn't know if it was in him or around me. By late morning, my stomach felt tight. I blamed the coffee. I blamed stress. I blamed anything except the possibility that Rowan was behind it. At 10:12, I went downstairs to clear my head. The lobby was busier than usual. 2 people from Rowan's school were there, Mr. Pierce and another teacher I recognized by face, not name. They seemed surprised to see me, but neither said anything. I tried to walk past them, but Mr. Pierce gave an awkward nod. Then I saw Rowan through the glass doors. He was standing outside on the plaza, hands in his pockets, posture calm, almost formal. He wasn't looking at me. He was speaking quietly to a man holding a small folder. A stranger, well-dressed, professional. My chest tightened. I stepped forward, pushing through the revolving door. When Rowan saw me, he didn't flinch, didn't soften, didn't look away. He simply waited. "Aeliana," he said, voice steady, almost gentle. "I needed to speak with you here." People slowed as they passed, not stopping, but observing, the way someone watches a quiet argument, unsure if they should stay or go. I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice light. "Why are you here? What's going on?" He nodded toward the man beside him. "This is a process server." The words didn't make sense at first. They sounded distant, like they belonged in someone else's story. The man stepped forward, holding the folder. "Mrs. Hale?" The formal tone hit harder than the words. I tried to laugh. "This is ridiculous. Rowan, what is this?" He didn't move, didn't blink. "It's the next step," he said quietly. "I'm handling things properly." My breath caught. "Properly? What does that even mean?" The man extended the folder again. "These are divorce papers. Temporary financial arrangements are included. Custody terms as well." A soft ringing filled my ears. I shook my head. "This is extreme. Rowan, can we talk at home? Why are you doing this in public?" He inhaled slowly. Not upset, not shaken, just steady. "Because conversations at home haven't changed anything," he said. "And because this is not a fight, it's a process." A process. He sounded like he was describing a broken appliance or a scheduling conflict. Not our marriage, not 17 years of history, not the life we built. "I didn't cheat," I blurted out, the words spilling before I could stop them. "You're twisting everything. Nothing happened. It didn't mean anything." A quiet sound behind me, someone shifting their weight, listening. I hated how public this was becoming. Rowan didn't raise his voice, didn't look angry. He only said, "I know what happened. I know when. I know where. I'm not interested in arguments." My hands trembled. "You're making yourself the victim. You always do this." He shook his head once. "No, I'm not the victim. I'm the one moving forward." The process server gently placed the folder into my hands. I didn't take it at first. I wanted to push it away, but my fingers closed around it before I could think. Rowan stepped back slightly. Not cold, just done. "You'll find everything inside. I've arranged temporary plans so Mira won't be affected this week. We can discuss transitions later. I don't want transitions, I snapped. I want my husband to stop acting like a stranger. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not anger, not sadness. Something quieter. I've been a stranger to you for a long time, he said. You just didn't notice. The plaza felt too bright, too open. The folder felt heavy in my hands. I tried to form words. An excuse, an explanation, something that would make all of this reverse itself. But nothing came out. People weren't staring outright, but I could feel eyes brushing over us like a cold wind. Rowan gave a small nod, polite and final. Take care of yourself, Aeliana. Then he turned, walked through the crowd, and kept going without looking back. The folder slipped from my hands and hit the ground with a soft, final sound.